Black Lives Matter Oklahoma City director indicted on federal embezzlement and money laundering charges. A federal grand jury has indicted the longtime director of a Black Lives Matter chapter in Oklahoma on multiple felony counts, alleging that she misappropriated millions of dollars in donated bail funds and used the money for personal expenses, including luxury travel, real estate purchases, and consumer spending. The charges, unsealed by the U.S. Department of Justice, represent one of the most significant criminal cases involving a local Black Lives Matter-affiliated organization since the nationwide protest movement that followed the death of George Floyd in 2020. Background of the case. Tashella Sheri Amore Dickerson, 52, served as executive director of Black Lives Matter Oklahoma City, BLM OKC, for several years, beginning no later than 2016, according to federal prosecutors. During her tenure, she allegedly exercised near-total control over the organization's finances, including access to bank accounts and digital payment platforms such as PayPal and Cash App. On December 3rd, a federal jury charged Dickerson with 20 counts of wire fraud and 5 counts of money laundering, crimes that collectively carry the potential for decades in federal prison if she is convicted on all counts. Prosecutors allege that from mid-2020 through at least October 2025, Dickerson diverted funds donated for social justice causes, specifically bail assistance for protesters, into personal accounts and expenditures. The indictment alleges that at least $315 million was embezzled during this period, although federal authorities say BLM OKC raised more than $5.6 million overall. The purpose of the funds. According to the indictment and accompanying DOJ release, BLM OKC began receiving large sums of money in late spring 2020, as nationwide protests erupted following high-profile police killings and racial justice demonstrations spread across the United States. Many of these funds were designated as bail money, intended to help individuals arrested during protests secure pretrial release. National bail organizations and donors reportedly contributed with the understanding that the funds would be used either to post bail directly or to support a revolving bail fund in which money returned after court proceedings could be reused for future cases. Federal prosecutors allege that Dickerson instead treated the funds as a personal revenue stream. Alleged personal spending. According to the indictment, Dickerson allegedly used the donated funds for a wide range of personal expenses unrelated to bail assistance or nonprofit activity. These expenditures allegedly included luxury travel, including recreational trips to Jamaica and the Dominican Republic, sometimes involving associates, the purchase of 6 properties in the Oklahoma City area, a personal vehicle, more than $50,000 in food and grocery delivery services for herself and family members. According to prosecutors, these organizations provided grants specifically intended to support individuals arrested during racial justice protests. In some cases, when bail money was returned after court proceedings, BLM OKC was permitted to retain all or part of the funds to establish a revolving bail system. Federal authorities allege that instead of maintaining such a system, Dickerson diverted returned bail funds for personal use. Scope and duration of the alleged scheme. The indictment alleges that the embezzlement scheme began around June 2020, when BLM OKC fundraising surged and continued for more than 5 years, extending into October 2025. Prosecutors claim the length of the alleged scheme demonstrates a sustained pattern of misconduct rather than isolated incidents or accounting errors. Law enforcement investigation. The investigation was conducted jointly by FBI, Oklahoma City Field Office. IRS Criminal Investigation Division federal prosecutors stated that financial records, electronic transaction histories, and organizational reports form the basis of the case. The prosecution is being led by Assistant U.S. Attorneys Matt Dillon and Jessica Perry. Public reaction and media commentary. The indictment has generated public debate and commentary, particularly regarding media coverage of alleged misconduct involving politically influential or activist organizations. Chris Putnam, CEO of the Dallas Express, publicly suggested that mainstream media outlets would minimize coverage of the case. His comments circulated widely on social media platforms, though they do not form part of the federal case itself. Journalists and commentators across the political spectrum have pointed out that the charges relate to a local chapter, not the National Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, which operates independently and has faced its own scrutiny in unrelated matters. Defendant's public identity Dickerson has previously described herself publicly as a black, queer, gender-fluid, fat associate pastor, according to reporting by journalist Andy Ngo. Federal prosecutors have not suggested that these identity descriptors are relevant to the charges, which focus exclusively on financial conduct. Legal presumption of innocence. The Department of Justice emphasized in its announcement that all charges against Dickerson are allegations. As stated in the release, the public is reminded that these charges are merely allegations and that the defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Dickerson has not been convicted of any crime at this stage, and her defense will have the opportunity to challenge the government's evidence in court. Broader context. The case adds to ongoing scrutiny of how protest-era donations were handled by activist organizations following the unprecedented surge in contributions during 2020. While many organizations successfully expanded services and advocacy, tens of thousands of dollars in retail shopping, including non-essential consumer purchases. Prosecutors allege these expenses were funded directly through wire transfers and electronic transactions tied to BLM OKC accounts, forming the basis for the wire fraud charges. Criminal charges explained. The indictment outlines two primary categories of alleged criminal conduct. Wire fraud. The 20 wire fraud counts stem from allegations that Dickerson knowingly used interstate electronic communications, such as online transfers and payment apps, to execute a scheme to defraud donors and sponsoring organizations. Each count of wire fraud carries up to 20 years in federal prison, up to $250,000 in fines, or more depending on sentencing calculations. Money laundering. The 5 money laundering counts allege that Dickerson conducted financial transactions involving proceeds derived from unlawful activity with the intent to conceal or disguise the nature or source of the funds. Each money laundering count carries up to 10 years in prison, up to $250,000 in fines, or twice the value of the laundered funds, whichever is greater organizational structure of BLM OKC. According to federal filings, Black Lives Matter Oklahoma City was not registered as a tax-exempt nonprofit organization with the Internal Revenue Service. Despite this, it was able to accept large donations through a fiscal sponsorship arrangement. BLM OKC operated under the fiscal sponsorship of the Alliance for Global Justice, AFGJ, an Arizona-based organization that provides administrative and legal support to various activist and social justice groups. Under the terms of the fiscal sponsorship, AFGJ was responsible for ensuring that donated funds were used in accordance with the law spent for legitimate charitable or tax-exempt purposes. Properly documented and reported, prosecutors allege that Dickerson violated these terms repeatedly. Alleged false reporting. Federal authorities claim that Dickerson submitted 2 false annual financial reports to AFGJ on behalf of BLM OKC. In these reports, she allegedly certified that all funds were used exclusively for tax-exempt and organizational purposes. According to the indictment, Dickerson failed to disclose that millions of dollars were allegedly spent on personal travel, housing, and consumer goods. The DOJ release states that these misrepresentations allowed Dickerson to continue receiving funds from national bail organizations and donors who relied on the accuracy of the reports. National Bail Fund contributions. In addition to individual donations, BLM OKC reportedly received funding from several national bail organizations, including Community Justice Exchange, Massachusetts Bail Fund, Minnesota Freedom Fund. Much of this funding was routed through the Alliance for Global Justice as part of the fiscal sponsorship arrangement. Others have faced questions regarding transparency, governance, and financial controls. Legal experts note that fiscal sponsorship arrangements, while common, require strict compliance and accurate reporting, particularly when large sums of donor money are involved. What happens next? Dickerson is expected to appear in federal court for arraignment and pretrial proceedings. If the case proceeds to trial, prosecutors will need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she knowingly engaged in fraud and laundering schemes. If convicted, sentencing would be determined under federal guidelines, taking into account factors such as amount of loss, duration of the alleged scheme, abuse of trust, prior criminal history, if any conclusion. The federal indictment of the Black Lives Matter Oklahoma City director marks a significant development in the ongoing examination of financial practices within protest-era organizations. While the allegations are serious and involve millions of dollars, the case remains in its early stages, and the outcome will ultimately be decided by the courts. Legal disclaimer. This article is a factual rewrite based solely on publicly available allegations and reporting. All charges described are allegations, not findings of guilt. Tashella Sheri Amore Dickerson is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in a court of law. No conclusions regarding guilt or innocence should be inferred from the existence of an indictment alone.